Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Ashay and today we are going to discuss about one of the most important topic for every data professional, which is building your resume to get screened in for major tech companies in the world right now. So without wasting any time, let's get into it. So in this video, I am going to go over some of the basic principles you need to follow to get the interview calls from biggest companies in the world right now. So I have followed those principles and I got calls from Amazon, Oracle, Cisco, as well as Deloitte, which currently I am working in. So the thing is, in data world, having the technical skills is the most important thing to shine in front of employers. But they don't know you, right? They don't even know what you've been working on. They don't even know what is your background, what is your education. They only care about the resume and what you have represented yourself in that resume. Because resume just acts like an index of every textbook. When you pick any book, any random book from a bookstore, the first thing you will do is you will go through the index and see if that book really fits your requirements or not. So that is the reason resume is a very important topic we need to discuss, because most of the guys out there will only focus on improving their skills, communication skills, as well as the technical skills and prepare for interviews. But they will forget that to get the interview call, users have to be screened in for that application. And resume will do that for you. So resume is the ticket to your interview call. So do you know that these big companies gets thousands of applications for every job profile for a month? That's crazy, right? And the chances of your resume to be screened in is very slight. So you have to make sure that your resume should be screened in and makes a good impression in front of the employer. So we are going to discuss about some of the principles you need to follow to make your resume really shine in front of the employer. And we are also going to give you this template in the description below so that you can start preparing your resume by following these principles right away. So the first thing is your name and the contact details, which will go at the top of the resume, which will be like the header of the resume. So in this part, you just have to mention your name, your email ID, your contact number, as well as the LinkedIn profile. Because having the link to your LinkedIn profile in your resume will very help you to get a good impression in front of the employer. Because in today's era, nobody will going to read the hard copy of your resume. They will only be reading the soft copy on their computers. And that's why your LinkedIn profile will also be a big part to represent your case in front of the employer. So your LinkedIn profile should be updated and there should be a link in your resume to the LinkedIn. That is the first requirement. And also you should add something like a GitHub repository where you have done your personal work, your practices, or any other projects you have built on your personal PC. So that will also be a good impression. So I myself will mention like the YouTube channel that I'm running right now, because that is relevant to my professional career. So that's why you have to choose it very carefully. That the thing you're doing or mentioning like a website or something that you have developed yourself, you have to make sure that it is completely relevant to your profession. So if you're a data engineer and you have like a blog where you mention some articles about data engineering, then that is a cherry on top of the cake. So this information will be like a header of your resume. And make sure that you are giving correct number and email, because that is the way the employee will reach out to you. So at the top, there goes your name, email ID, contact information, your LinkedIn profile, as well as the link to your publication or the GitHub repository. Then the next section is executive summary. So executive summary is like a 2 to 3 liner item in which you will be mentioning how much experience you have, the industry that you have been working in, as well as for the data engineers especially, what kind of data you're using. Some of you guys will be on the healthcare domain, or some of you will be on the financial domain where you are handling like a transactional data. It doesn't matter. You just have to give the high level idea of what you have done in this dash years. So accordingly, you have to mention your experience as well as the industry. So industry means the IT services or else a consulting firm, whatever it is. You have to mention that industry. So these 3 lines will be very important to make a good impression, because survey says that employers will only look your resume for just 6 seconds, because they don't have time. They don't have time to go through thousands of resumes for every job application, because that will be a hectic task. And many companies don't even look out the resume. They will just get the help from any software which will enable them to get the resume screening. So they will just look out for the keywords from the resume, and accordingly the resume will be screened in, because that will make their lives very easier. So you have to make sure that your resume is keyword optimized. That is going to be a next topic that we'll be discussing in this video. But the first thing is, you have to make sure that in the executive summary, you don't have to write an essay. You just have to mention 2 or 3 skills maybe in your field, the experience and the industry that you have been working in. You don't have to go all technical here. This is like a high level idea of your professional career, because the technical stuff that you are going to see in the next step. So we have a sample example in your template so that you can just edit it and it will be fine 100%, but you can add your own things as well. So it's up to you only. So that's what's about the executive summary. So the next section is technical expertise, or we can say skills. So in this section, you have to mention your big 6 skills, and if you have to mention it in the orderly manner. So the biggest tool that you know and you have a good grip on, that you have to mention the first, and the skill that you don't have much hands on but you have been learning it for some months, so that also you can mention. That totally depends on your technical skills that you are using in your current project. And also one thing, so if you know like many RDBMS, like if you're having good grip on SQL Server as well as the Oracle DB, you don't have to mention it as a separate skills. It's a one skill only, because it comes under the umbrella of relational databases. So that you have to mention in the one point only. And the next point you can mention, if you know about different other databases like NoSQL databases, that you can mention in other skill. So for a data engineer, the common skills are like Hadoop ecosystem, which comes with different tools like Hive, Impala, HDFS, MapReduce, whatever it is. You have to mention those in these skills. And one point to the programming languages. So if you know like Scala, Python, Java, that you can mention as a one skill, because that skill belongs to the umbrella of programming languages. So this way you have to pick your 6 skills that you need to show in front of your employer. Because data engineering is a very vast concept. It is not like every data engineer will have the same skills. Many data engineers are working on different tools, as well as many engineers are working on completely different set of tools. Some of them will choose Azure, some of them will work on AWS, and so on. So you have to make sure that employer will look for certain skills, and that's why skills are very important and they should be at the top of your resume only. Because let's say, for example, if a company is hiring for a data engineer who has the skill like EMR, Kafka, real-time streaming, then they will only look for those skills. So in that case, the dude which is working on a batch data will not be suitable for that job role. So that's why you have to mention your big 6 skills very carefully. So this was all about the skills. The next part is very important and you have to be very careful while preparing this part. The next part is the technical expertise demonstrated. So this is like the explanation of what skills you have provided and what you have been working on in a more descriptive manner. So this is like an essay, for example. So in this step, you have to mention your employer. So many of the professionals have worked for 2 to 3 companies. So you have to make sure that this should not go beyond 2 pages. This will be like your second job. Then the first job, you should mention like 4 to 5 points. But if you are having the experience from 2 to 3 companies or more, you have to make sure that this shouldn't be very long, because at the end of the day, I'll be honest with you that recruiters will not even read that. They only care about the skills, experience you have, and the other professional development you have been doing. That will be the next part, which will come in the educational section. But in this section, you have to make sure that you are explaining very precisely what you are working on. You don't have too many lines here. You just have to mention the keywords here. And this is the part where you can definitely optimize the keywords and get attracted in front of the employer. So what you have to do is you have to first mention the employer name. After that, you have to mention the dates. like the start date and end date of your job, as well as the description of the company. If you are working in a MNC company, that doesn't even matter and you should skip it totally, because if you are mentioning like TCS, Cognizant or Accenture, everyone knows about that company, right? Everyone can Google and see. But if you are working in a small scale industry, a startup or whatever it is, so for that purpose you have to mention at least one liner item like the size of the organization, as well as number of employees that particular organization has, and what is the product of your employer. That is very important, because if the recruiters don't have idea about that company, then that will not make a good impression and your chances of passing your resume is very thin. So you have to make sure that you are making a good impression of your employer as well. So here comes the details about the employees. Now for you have to again mention that experience in a one-liner item, that what is your job role, how long you worked on that role, etc, etc. So for me, I worked 2 years in Cognizant and I was on a big data project where I handled financial data and helped build a big data analytics platform for our client. So that I'll mention in just one line. After that, the skills that you have mentioned, that you have to denote here. So you can mention like 3 points. So the 3 skills which you utilize for this job role, that you have to mention in this. So if you're talking about Hadoop ecosystem, then you have to describe how you have utilized Hadoop ecosystem to provide the solution to your client. And you don't have to be 100% technical in this area. You have to be very functional as well, because at the end of the day, you are extracting meaning out of data. That is very important. So that's why you have to also mention what problem you have solved for your clients. So that will be very difficult. So for example, currently I'm working in Deloitte and we are helping clients to reduce the fraudulent activities in their credit card portfolio, and we are utilizing graph databases, graph data science, as well as Apache Spark, Hive, and so on. So that you have to mention. You just don't have to mention that all the technical tools you are using. You have to mention what kind of data you're using, why you're doing it, the problem statement, as well as the solution. And you have to be very careful in this part, because if you have worked in 3 or more companies, then you don't have to write a long description of your job role. You have to make it very crisp and clear, and don't forget to put keywords in that. So what are the keywords? Keywords are like financial data, healthcare industry, as well as the tools that you're using like EMR, AWS, Kafka, whatever it is. So these are the keywords that employer will look for a particular job role. So if they matches and if your resume have ample amount of keywords, then the chances of getting that resume passed for further process will be very more, right? And that's you have to do. So in this part, similarly for one employer, what you have done for this first employer, that you have to do for the next employers as well. And you have to make sure that it should be in the order. So the latest employment should be at the top and the old ones will be below. That is very important. And also you have to make sure that you are putting numbers in that description. For example, if you are doing any automation work and you have saved some thousands of dollars by automating the manual task, as well as if you are improved the runtime of your data pipeline by using the optimization techniques and using the best practices, that also you have to mention, because that will be a very good impression in front of the employer. So having the numbers on your resume will be way more better than just describing what you're doing, because at the end of the day, value matters. So whatever you have achieved in this project, you have to mention very carefully, and because you have very limited words here. So that was all about this part. This is the biggest part of your resume, and you can take advantage of different keywords as well as these numbers to improve the probability of winning in this race. So the next thing is education. So education section is also very important. It is not the most important, but it is important after your experience, because you are now an experienced data engineer. So as year after year, your experience will matter most than the education, and the value of the education will make lesser and lesser impact on your resume. So you have to keep this section very short, because every recruiter will only look out for the criteria. So for criteria, every data professional should have like a graduate degree from a reputed institute. So that's only will be enough. You don't have to mention any percentages or whatever the activities you have done while you are in the college, because it doesn't matter what you have done. The only impact you should do is in your experience. So in the education section, you have to keep it very simple. So in this part, you will mention the institute, the degree. So if you have done MBA, then you have to mention the MBA, as well as, in short, you can also mention the stream in which there could be like major and minor. That also you can mention. You don't have to give like the address of the institute or any other stuff that is irrelevant here. And also main thing is you have to mention the years, because many professionals will be having like a gap in their education. So that is also a criteria for employers. So you have to mention the years at the below. That's it. You don't even need to mention your secondary or higher secondary education. That is not required, but you can definitely mention it, but you have to keep it very short. All you have to mention is college, the degree which you got, as well as the years. That's it. But the next section is like a subsection of the education, which is like other professional development. This is very important section for boosting your resume. So in this section, you have to mention all the certifications that you have done in your professional journey. This is very important because every data professional should have at least one certification in this area. Why? Because certification is a best motivation in your learning journey. Because let's say if I am not even working on Azure, but I have to have that skill, because that is going to help me in my professional journey, and down the line if recruiter will require Azure as a skill, then I can show that by grabbing one of the certifications and prove my skills by passing that exam. And also, if you are wanting to learn any new skills, earning a certification from that platform will make a great impression on your resume. Because let's be honest, you are working 8 hours a day and you also deserve like holidays and time off. So when you have time to learn all these things, right? So certification will give you motivation to make time every day to learn that new technology. So that's why I always prefer to have at least one certification, and if your experience is more than 3 years, then you should have at least associate level or expert level certifications in your area. So if you are working on an AWS project, then grabbing an AWS certification is very great thing. So for this section, I will not at all recommend some of the online courses like Udemy courses or any other courses from the platform. That will also be a good impression, and if you don't even have any certification, then don't worry, you can always mention some Udemy courses, but you have to make sure that it should not go beyond 3 certification or courses, because that will make your resume very crowded. You just have to pick the best learning journey that you have done. So I have bunch of certification. I have total 5 certification, but I will not mention those in the resume because 3 of them are fundamental certification and they don't even add that much value in my resume as per my experience. So I will mention only like the associate level certification that I have done in this sector, and that will same apply for you as well. So in this section, you have to mention the certification name, the certification number, and also the link to that certification. So nowadays, Credly will give us like the badge for your certification, which will be like a verification for that particular certification. So you have to mention the Credly link in the brackets, and after that you have to mention the organization from where you have grabbed or earned this certification, as well as the year of completion. That's it. That is like a one-liner item, and you have to mention max of 3 certifications here, and they should be like the highest level certifications of your career, because having the certification will make you more attractive in front of the employer. So that was all about the educational part. The next part is a volunteerism part. I don't think that this is very relevant to data engineering field, so I'll definitely not talk about it that much because I don't even mention volunteerism in my resume. But if you have done some fantastic work in volunteerism, then you have to also mention that. But you have to make it very short because that is like the lowest priority item in your resume. This makes a very good impression as well, and it totally depends on what role, what company you are applying. Because if it is like totally tech oriented company, they will not that much care about the volunteerism work that you have done in the past. But it is good to mention, and it is like a good addition to your resume. And this you have to mention the organization name as well as what type of work you have done in 1 or 2 liner item. That's it. So after that, there comes the other relevant information, which is also a very good thing to add. So in this, you will be having like the languages as well as the additional tools you have been working on. So in the language, you have to mention all the languages that you can speak and write, and also the level in the bracket. And after that, you can mention like the technical skills, where you can mention different tools like GitHub, PyCharm, different or any other IDEs, the tools you are using like the Putty Terminal or Power BI, anything that you have been working on, that you have to mention in this section. And you can mention many skills here. So you can mention like 10-20 tools which is like comma separated, so that will not take much space. And at the last of the other relevant information part, so in this part you can mention like the awards that you have achieved in your professional journey. That is also a good thing to mention in your resume to make a good impression in front of the employer. So this was all about building a great resume for data engineers out there. Because data engineers only cares about the technical skills, but many of them will not care about how you can build resume to make a good impression in front of the recruiters of biggest tech companies in the world right now. So if you follow these principles, I'll guarantee you that you will make a good impression and your resume will get passed in the further process of the recruitment process. So I'm hoping that you like this lecture and you got some good information from it, and I'll be giving this template in the description below so that you can go through it and make your resume as effective as possible. So if you have any difficulties or doubts, you can definitely reach out to you by commenting below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. So that's it for today. I'll see you in the next video.